Glytch joins us to talk pineapple drones, this time on Hak5. Hello and welcome to Hak5. My name is Darren Kitchen. It's your weekly dose of Technolist, and today I'm so excited because we are joined by one of my all-time favorite makers, Glytch. Dude, thank you for coming down. This is so exciting. It has been way too long, and if you guys are not following Glytch on Twitter, you need to go and do that because you have been making stupid, crazy, insane projects for years now. Tell us, I'm so excited that you're here to talk to us about the latest one, which is
Pineapple Drone, yeah.
So it's kind of funny, the Pineapple Drone, where it's like, it's almost like art imitates life, imitates art, in the sense that, remember when we were, like, the Wi-Fi Pineapple found its way into Watch Dogs 2, the like GTA-like video game about hacking, and in it, they've got this like surveillance drone.
Yeah, it's like a hacking signal intelligence drone. Yeah, it's a pivot point, exfil, yeah.
And it kind of like builds on, I guess, some of the notions from Perch and Stare, which was like a DARPA project from, I think, 2012, where essentially the concept was that you would fly a drone or a UAV or whatever somewhere, it would land, it would do a bunch of surveillance and beam it back or fly home with it. And it was one of these like DARPA Grand Challenge kind of things where it's like, oh, $100,000 for the winners, and there was like 140 people that tried out, and there were no winners. But not today. This is a real winner. I'm so excited. Tell us about this ridiculous drone.
So my whole goal with it was to make something that was slim, small, backpack carryable, with a Wi-Fi Pineapple on board to do, the video game style hacking where you send this drone out and it hacks the network and, you exfil your data and you bring it back. And that was just the concept of Perch and Stare. And I've done some work in this field before, but it was with much bigger drones. And then I saw the Pineapple Nano, and I wanted to basically make something that was slimlined and form-fitting for the Nano. And yeah, that was kind of the starting point. And I ran it on a lithium-ion battery starting out, and I was having some issues there, so I went back to the more...
You were running it, because this is a traditional LiPo cell, as a reformed drone addict that had every cell in between. That is, that's kind of the go-to, the standard, right? This is a 3
High
cell?
current, low internal resistance, yep.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. So you're saying that you were using lithium-ion, typically like the stuff that you would find in a laptop.
Yes, it's a higher power density, so you can get more energy for less weight. And what that allows would be effectively more flying time for a given weight of battery. Really? I've never heard of that. You would have thought that would be like all over RC groups, or maybe it is and I just haven't seen that one. The biggest problem with that is lithium ions are lower current. They can't generally sustain the currents you need for drone applications. These things are running at 40, 50 amps sometimes when you're, full tilt. Right, because these things, 4 motors, they take up a lot of power, so that's why all of these batteries have like a C rating on here. I'm assuming this guy's got one listed as well. Yes. And basically it's just a mathematical way to say, like, of how much power this has, this is how much at once you can get. Source, yeah, for continuous, I believe. But so the lithium-ion batteries I were using are relatively new. They are LG HG2 cells, and they're rated for 30 amps continuous, which still isn't quite enough for a full-on racing drone, but the way this thing was built and designed was to be more efficient and just basically a small camera platform, effectively, something that hovers and just sits in the air. It's not meant to move around at racing drone speeds. So are you saying that initially you were actually going for like a high flight time? Yeah. See, I was thinking like, a lot of times, say on a pen test or something, we'll say like, oh, well, don't bother getting in the building. If you know everybody is going to go to lunch at this cafe or whatever, go and bring your pineapple to the cafe to do your lawful engagement. Now you can just land it on the building. And then if you power down the motors, you've got battery for days, because this whole flight system is running off one battery. I don't see like anything else connected. Yeah, there's a voltage regulator in there that's regulating the voltage down to 5 volts for the Pineapple. And rough math says you could run that for 6 or more hours with enough time to fly in and out. I've seen people basically strap a Pineapple to a drone with its own power source and stuff before, but this is completely custom built. It's got to say, the one thing that strikes me, other than the fact that like it looks so sick and custom,
is that this is 3D printed.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
I mean, this is, I would be terrified that flying and I know many people are, flying a 3D printed drone would bow and deform, and I mean, I've only printed with like PLA,
So this is ABS plastic, and it is a little bit more flexible, but it doesn't shatter or crack. It's got a lower hardness, but a higher strength. I don't know the technical term right
wait,
off,
are you saying that this would actually deal better in a crash than, say,
Yeah.
Because most people use carbon fiber, which is really strong, except when you impact at certain angles, it's like it just wants to shatter everywhere.
Yeah, well, I have had a few crashes, not with this drone, but generally ABS will flex to a certain point before it snaps, whereas carbon fiber and other things with high hardness will want to snap with any amount of flex. So this will, to some extent, absorb that energy.
Yeah, it also is nice that you can go from an idea to having it 3D printed
in hand.
How long does it take to print this frame?
This frame is about 6 hours on my modified printer. On a standard printer, it would probably take 8 to 12 due to the smaller nozzle. I'm using a much lighter.
The nozzle is what now?
I'm using a 0.8 millimeter nozzle on mine. Normally they are 0.4 to 0.5 for higher resolution stuff. I do mostly structural stuff, so bigger nozzle makes things print quicker.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, structurally speaking, like how do you actually build in the rigidity? How do you actually design for strength?
In this application, I was having issues with the frame bending like this, bowing in like that. And what I did is I added this top plate here with bolts all the way around it. And that added a resistance to that. And another thing I did, well, not on this specific frame, is I added chamfers, and it's basically a ramped section like that. And that smooths the load going into the body so that it's not just pinching right there on that point. So, and there's some other things you can do to optimize your design for high load applications, but people said it couldn't be done, and well, here it is.
Right, and it looks so slick. Is the thing that I like is, it's normally with a, whoa, hello.
Let me, yep, motor timeout, sorry.
Gotcha. But normally, well, MG is here, so I'm like, oh no, does he have the controller? He's telling me pick it up.
I brought that in for a specific reason, and we have it.
Yeah, I want to take a peek inside because this is a really clean build, and it's actually not even getting that hot. And I'm assuming when it's flying, clearly it's going to be much cooler.
Well, it'll be using more power and dissipating that into the ESC, but it will have some airflow over it.
Ooh. Oh my God, I love how nicely everything is stacked. Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
So here we go. I'm familiar with this guy. So your FPV transmitter.
Yep, that's about 600 milliwatts. It's a bit much for how tight it is in here. It gets a bit warm, but...
Yeah, you should be able to get some range off that.
Oh yeah, certainly.
And then what on earth? Where are your ESCs? I don't even see them.
So I'm using a DYS F20A 4-in-1 ESC.
So what is that?
And it's a little module that sits underneath the flight controller. It has the same form factor, same bolt holes, so they stack nicely. And it's got all 4 ESCs in one, and it makes it a really easy to install module. Okay,
so this, right as I was getting out of my, I don't want to call it drone phase, but I was down the rabbit hole, I had heard about these, and my fear was, oh, dude, when ESCs die,
you blow one up, you got to replace the whole thing.
Whole board, yeah. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
I've not really had any issues with that. I have blown one up, but it was a very niche failure mode. It was a very weird failure mode, and I've not had any other issues outside of this. I use them on all of my builds, basically.
That's rad.
And yeah, I love them.
And then what's this camera here on the front?
That is a Runcam Owl 2, and it's a dual mode camera that has a little bit of daylight capability. It doesn't look great, but it has, I don't want to say night vision. It has low light capability. You can run based off just the street lights. You can see way better. The exposure
that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah,
night flying is just...
It goes into black and white mode, so you don't get your color, but you can still see where you're going. And you got this thing flying overhead, and you can't see it, but it can see you.
Well,
assuming you float at night, which I don't.
Tell me about the flight controller on here. That looks familiar, but I know that there's like a new one every 6 months. Which one is this?
This one is an Omnibus F4 V2 Pro, I believe.
Okay, so it's an F4 chip.
Yes.
Yeah. And then that means that it can run a plethora of flight controllers like Clean Flight,
Betaflight. This one's running iNav.
iNav. Tell me about iNav.
It's based off Betaflight, but it is optimized for navigation and autonomy. Betaflight and Clean Flight are oriented more for racing drones, where you want very fast response times, accuracy and such. But they support GPS, but they don't really support GPS.
Yeah, nobody doing barrel rolls between trees is using GPS.
Is using position hold or waypoint navigation. You don't need it usually.
And also, trust me, I was one of those racers. I know you don't want the extra weight, and although this doesn't look like much. So this is the GPS receiver, right here?
Yep. That is specifically an M8N, which to my knowledge is one of the most advanced GPS chips you can get in this form factor. And it gives you something resembling centimeter accuracy, very high sensitivity. So even if you were under trees, which again I don't recommend because of multipathing and whatnot, you can still maintain a fix with 13 to 15 satellites. And it used to be on the 6N chips. You'd be lucky to have 7 sats some days.
Now on the flight controller side, like I've played with like waypoint kind of GIS type navigation. On the commercial side with DJI, and it's like, okay, well that's fun, but it's a black box. And then on the open source side, I have played with APM, oh dear God.
Oh yeah, I've had my experience with APM and...
How does this, where does this run in the range? And for those that aren't familiar, the APM stuff, at least when it was starting with its like, the idea is you give it a bunch of waypoints and you say, here, go do that path. The commercial side did pretty well. The APM side, when it was still in its infancy, let's give them that credit, was it was.
They were trying to do everything at once.
Yeah.
And I liked what their mission was, but ultimately, it didn't work out. I'm not fond of
It's terrifying
using them.
when an autonomous drone starts doing its own.
It is a flying lawnmower, is what I like to call it, because I mean. It turns turtle, you've got problems.
Yeah, no joke. So how does iFlight, did you say?
iNav,
how does that compare?
It's pretty well balanced. It doesn't have the full feature capabilities of everything that APM can do. But what it does have, it works really well, really reliably. I've not had any flyaways, crashes, resulting in the flight controller doing something undesirable.
Would you be able to give it a waypoint that actually includes a command like land?
Yes, you can still do your takeoff, landing, and everything programmatically. I believe you still have to load it up over USB right now, but they are working on adding telemetry-based waypoints within the next major version. So they're still actively working on it and really expanding its capabilities.
Cool. So even in the V1 version of this Pineapple drone, being able to load it and say, here, I want you to land on that building, and then power down the motors, and then come back a few hours later.
Hypothetically.
Totally feasible. Yeah, well, within the scope of engagement,
Yeah,
and if the client says, we want you to do that, by all means.
The biggest issue I have with that application is just updrafts and whatnot, the physics behind it, but theoretically you could do that, yes.
Yeah, that would be kind of a real shame, as it were.
I'd want to guide it in by hand.
Went in upside down.
I'd want to guide it in by hand for the landing personally, but you could, in theory.
Yeah, I don't know, and most of these flight controllers are kind of, I wouldn't say hardwired, but programmed in such a way that if they lose radio signal, they're going to go into a fail state.
Yep.
And that's the sort of thing where if I'm saying, like, I want a waypoint that I want you to land on, and what's the flight time on this thing, right?
About 12 to 15 minutes, I estimate.
So with that, you could say, like, I want you to go and land on this building that's like 10 miles away, and whoop, there, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it could, I believe it could. I don't know if you'd be getting it home that far, but if you had a nearby recovery point or something, you could probably do that.
That's where you run into the fun, terrifying stuff with the FAA and such. So for the most part, keep this line of sight.
Yep,
and,
absolutely.
Yeah, but it is cool that there's that autonomous feature to it.
Oh yeah, I want to play with that a lot more. It just needs, I'm waiting for it to be refined slightly more, but it's functional more so than Betaflight or Clean Flight is.
So how did you balance the power system if you're looking for longevity, not like doing barrel rolls?
Big props, slower motors than what you normally run on a racer.
Right, what are these carbon fiber guys?
These are 5030s. Okay. They are, like you said, carbon fiber props. And they don't have a lot of flex, which gives them a little bit more efficiency because they're not wasting that energy. And they're also really rugged. I've not broken a set of these.
And so it's a 3-cell?
Yes, and that's a little bit powerful for the 2400 kV motors I'm running. But what I do is I cap the throttle, and it limits me to a certain rate of climb and everything, so you're not going to get yourself into these bad spots where you need to use a lot of power to recover.
What kind of motors are these?
These are 2400 kV, I believe, 2008 motors.
Okay, 2008. So they're not huge, but they're not tiny either.
There's been a trend using 1806s or 22 somethings, and that's just the size of the internal motor, internal stator. And I wanted to find balance. This is a heavy quad at about 600 grams.
Whoa.
So I needed some power, but I also wanted to not have an excessive amount.
I must say, we didn't design the Pineapple Nano
with drones in mind.
Flight characteristics in mind, although I could see it's a little aerodynamic with the curves.
What the bulk of the weight is the battery. It weighs about 195 grams.
So what's the all-up weight on this guy?
Right about 600 grams.
Wow, so
without the battery, it's about
So with the battery, 600.
400.
And you're generating what kind of thrust? Because
I don't know the exact numbers right off, but it's about, I want to say a 3-to-1 to 4-to-1 thrust to weight ratio, and that's with the throttle capped. That's with the throttle capped.
Yeah, anything 2-to-1 or higher, it's gonna fly. I mean,
yeah.
it might fly like a pregnant whale, but it's going to fly. Well, that's awesome.
I've not done full speed testing yet, but I think it can still get pretty quick.
Right. So how did you go about designing it?
I use Fusion 360 as my CAD program. And prior to that, I was using 123D Design. I had nothing but crashing issues.
Is that the online one or the one that you could download from back in the day?
That's one you could download.
Because I tried to use that recently and it's
they deprecated
gone.
it.
It's like they want you to use some online thing.
I didn't want to switch over, but Fusion 360, it's more advanced, but its capabilities are, once you know how to use them, it's a lot more capable.
Yeah, I'd love to see what you did to build in the strength. I'm like really surprised how well a 3D printed quadcopter flies. It's kind of changing my whole perception of what's possible, because I've always thought like, oh well, clearly
it's good for knickknacks and not much else.
Yeah, we're like, oh, that's a fun toy, but if you want anything real, you're gonna have to use G10 or carbon fiber, and that's just not something that's readily available for everybody to be able to manufacture at home.
I don't know how well this would fare in a racing drone aspect, like if you were doing barrel rolls and stuff like that, but it wasn't designed with that in mind, and that's the key point here is, if you design something for the application and not just using existing material science and whatnot, you can really get something to work out for you. You just got to know where to put the strength and where to save the weight.
Right, and since you did custom design this means that in the future, as you want to continue building with this, you've got the ability to say oh, well, we need a little bit higher of a deck here. We're gonna, put a component here, a component there, and then you can make the space for it rather than trying to shoehorn it into somebody else's frame.
Exactly. It's all very custom, very much designed for the application.
So what I really want to know is, where do we go from here? If this is V1, what do you envision for V2?
So I do have some ideas, nothing really set in stone yet, but I really want to add a Raspberry Pi Zero or another similar kind of single board computer. And what that would allow is a certain amount of flexibility in what I can make it do. Autonomy-wise, camera-wise, I can add HD FPV using a system called Wi-Fi broadcast.
Wait, what? As opposed to using this, so you'll actually save some weight?
Yeah, well, I'd be adding a little more with the Raspberry Pi, but I would be losing that, so it would balance out pretty well. Yeah, just about.
And so what is this Wi-Fi HD broadcast? What is that?
It's an interesting system that someone came up with that I don't think it uses beacon frames directly, but it basically beacons out video packets at a known rate and protocol. It's basically using the PHY interface of the Wi-Fi card and not following 802.11 specifically.
Oh, so it's frame injection.
Basically, yes.
But it's not following the 802.11 protocol.
And you've got a receiver on the other end.
So there's no need for an association and request and response and authentication and datagrams.
Less latency doing it.
It's not TCP.
Less latency.
Yeah.
Less, if you get towards the end of your range, it just drops a few frames. So it doesn't completely disconnect. So
it's a one-way kind of UDP-like thing where it's best effort protocol.
It is two-way. You can send telemetry back as well. It's just...
So there's a control channel, but for getting the video at least.
Yeah, video's one way.
That sounds sweet.
People have done 720p at sub 50 milliseconds latency over the protocol. With, I think it was 2 to 3 kilometers of range.
Wow.
Just using a TP-Link V1 card with 2 just a regular dipole on it and a regular dipole on the ground. That's not even using Yagis.
Whoa, that's insane. That's really exciting. Okay, I would love to see that. And if somebody is interested in building one of their own and maybe doing a mod like that or adding something else, because that's the beauty of this, like when you're building your own kind of open source frames and such, that people can
just pick it up and change it and do whatever
go with it. That's the beauty about the inherent open source nature of 3D printing. Where can because I know someone is like, I want to it has their their bot right there ready to go.
I will preface this with, this is a pretty complex build. It's more so than the carbon fiber frames you put together, in the sense that everything is very tightly packed within this box here. Wire routing is a pain. You have to shorten a lot of the cables so that you don't have a rat's nest built up in there. But if you want to, kind of take on the challenge and put one together, I have the CAD files on Thingiverse, and I'm working on a write-up on my blog.
On your GitHub blog?
Yeah, glytch.tech.
Sweet. Okay, glytch.tech. What a fantastic URL. That's also the name of the YouTube channel. You should go and check it out because Glytch does amazing stuff.
YouTube.com/glitch for that. And I do want to put together a proper video build log for this too. I'm working on it.
I'm just so excited that you're down here. This has been a long time coming. If you guys want to see more of Glytch, let us know in the comments and what you would like to see next with the Pineapple Drone. The what's the fun code name for it?
Project Cuckoo.
What? Is there like something behind this?
So cuckoos are the only birds that lay eggs in others' nests, and when they grow up and hatch, they push the other eggs out.
Hey.
So basically, this is the Trojan horse, the cuckoo that gets put into another nest. It goes and sits up somewhere it shouldn't be, hypothetically.
I love it. This is fantastic. Glytch, dude, it was so awesome having you on. Thank you
Thanks
so
for having
much.
me.
Everybody go and check out Glytch on YouTube, on Twitter, on all of the internets, and we'll be there to remind you
To trust your technolust.
Oh, see, you know it. See, there you go. See, MG was like, what? Domain.com has all your website needs, from .com and .net domains to intuitive website builders, so you can take that first step in creating your online identity. Let me tell you, there's no domain extension like a .com or a .net, or if you want to brand yourself, Domain.com has over 300 domain extensions like .club and .space. These guys are huge fans of Hak5. They're affordable, reliable. We've been using them for years. They've got all the tools you need to share your ideas with the world, and because they're such big fans, they are hooking you up with 15% off their already affordable prices. So get domain names and web hosting and email, and just be sure to use that coupon code HAK5. So when you think domain names, think domain.com.